Pam Parker. Pam. Thank you, Kay. She's a good rallier, isn't she? She's great. Well, hello, everyone. We're so thrilled to see you all out here this morning or this afternoon, and especially so many people willing to pay attention to Medicaid. I worked in Medicaid. I've worked there in Medicaid since 1972, so my whole professional life. I have been a Medicaid recipient. My son and my brother have both benefited from Medicaid, and thanks to Medicaid, my 100-year-old mother is getting care right now, Medicaid and the VA. It's the closest thing to universal health care that we have. Even though it's been around for 60 years, most people don't know very much about Medicaid. They used to not even know what I was talking about. And they get Medicaid and Medicare mixed up. So my job today is to give you a little information about how important Medicaid is to all of us, so you see what's at stake and can help educate your friends, relatives, and neighbors, who many of whom think there's no problem here, there's nothing going on. They don't believe that this is really happening. So since you're attending this rally, you already know that the MAGA Congress, I gotta get this up here. Yeah, right. They have set budget parameters requiring cuts of at least $880 billion to Medicaid over the next 10 years. They want to get enough savings out of Medicaid to pay for their tax cuts to billionaires. And this is an outrageous attack on the 1.4 million people on Medicaid in Minnesota. 1.4 million, who include our most vulnerable citizens like older adults, people with disabilities, and children. So we say shame. Don't mess with Medicaid. Don't mess with Medicaid. Don't mess with Medicaid. Don't mess with Medicaid. So Medicaid, it's actually the nation's single largest healthcare insurer. It covers approximately 79.3 million people in the United States, and that's 23% of all Americans. And I said before, 1.4 of them are here in Minnesota. In Minnesota, Medicaid enrolls more people than Medicare, and people in greater Minnesota are more likely to get Medicaid than people in the metro area. There goes some facts that most people don't understand. Now we get kind of nerdy here. Medicaid is a partnership between the states and the feds, and the states already pay an average of 40% of Medicaid costs, while the feds pay the rest, including more to the poorer states and a higher share for uninsured people who can't afford health care. And just wait till Congress Republicans start to catch on that their favorite red states get higher shares of Medicaid funds and are going to be hit the hardest by these cuts. About 65% of Minnesota Medicaid enrollees, so that's 65% of the 1.4 million people, are families, kids, and low-income people without employer insurance. Nationwide, Medicaid covers nearly half of all children, and 40% of all births. All children are born on Medicaid, and almost 50% in the rural areas are born under Medicaid. In Minnesota, it covers about half of all substance use disorder treatment and more mental health services than anyone else, especially for kids. But costs for these 65% are only about 22% of Medicaid costs. The bulk of Medicaid spending, more than 60% of it, goes to services for older adults or people with disabilities, and they make up only 14% of Medicaid enrollees. So it's Medicaid, not Medicare, that you have to go to. It's the primary source of coverage for people who need nursing homes, assisted living, and in-home services, and want to stay in their own homes. And the average annual nursing home costs in Minnesota are $150,000 to $170,000 per year. So the average person cannot afford to pay there without Medicaid. Congress right now is having to reveal and finally tell what they really mean by the $880 billion that they're trying to cut. They're proposing, but we already know the math doesn't work. It just doesn't work. There's not enough Medicaid in it to be able to do that, Medicaid money in it to do what they want to do. So first of all, they're proposing to require Medicaid enrollees to work, but guess what? Most of them already do. If they're not disabled, 92% of those who are not disabled are already working. And the small 8% are caregivers or in school. And most of the states that have tried this, it said it didn't work anyway because of those numbers. They're also proposing per capita caps or cuts to the federal share that would not cover the state's actual costs, or consider if another pandemic came along or economic downturn, it wouldn't work. So with huge cuts to the federal share, simply states just won't have the capacity to make up the difference. In Minnesota, we're expecting that it would be over $1.6 billion. To make things even worse, Trump's budget attacks other safety net programs for seniors, like it's going to cut Older Americans Act funding for Meals on Wheels and the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. Yeah, isn't that amazing? The ombudsman programs, and then thousands of more medical staff and people at HHS and that run these kind of programs for our sickest people. So Trump has said he won't cut Medicaid and Medicare to people, but then why are he in Congress pursuing this in the first place? Do you believe him after all his lies? No! We can't believe anything he says. So what are the consequences of these massive cuts? Millions of Medicaid recipients across the country will lose access to health care. Rural providers like hospitals, clinics, and nursing homes will cut back or close because they're already stressed out. Economies in greater Minnesota especially are going to be disrupted, with jobs lost in communities where those providers are often the most major employers. There is already a huge caregiver shortage, especially in greater Minnesota, made worse by Trump's draconian crackdowns on immigrants who make up 25% of the healthcare workforce. So it'll be even harder to get staff. Families are already at their peak capacity of caregiving for people with disabilities and older adults. Children will lose access to healthcare with lifelong effects. People will suffer, and older or frail people will just plain die. So first we have to understand it is up to us. No one's coming along to fix this. Thoughts and prayers will not empty bedpans.
Thoughts and prayers will not empty bedpans.
Thoughts and prayers will not empty bedpans.
One more.
Thoughts and prayers will not empty bedpans. We are the only hope for stopping this destruction, and we must stop it for ourselves, our parents, our grandparents, and the future of our children. Now, we all thank our Medicaid, our Democratic officials for their support for Medicaid and what they've been doing. We want to support them and continue to fight this. These protests are gathering more and more people and attention. Who knew that Medicaid would be an attention getter? It is making a difference. It is making a difference, like we did in the 1960s, and we are just getting started. It's only been 100 days. If we get enough, right.
We're just getting started.
We're just getting started.
We're just getting started.
We're just getting started. If we get enough people to listen to our stories and understand what is at stake and join us in these protesting the cuts, it will make the Trump MAGA muskrats look like heartless grandma killers. So today we are telling our stories. We're standing up. We're being heard. Let's stop the grandma killers and make this 100 days of destruction end now. Stop the destruction. Stop the destruction. Stop the destruction.
I don't believe we're on the eve of destruction.